Hello everybody, my name is Erin Emery and I have decided to present on Patagonia as my firm of endearment for the MBA-536 presentation. I chose Patagonia because I enjoy outdoor sports like rock climbing and hiking, and when we first actually started this course, they were a company that immediately came to my mind as a firm of endearment. So to really illustrate their status as a firm of endearment, I think it is important to first revisit what it means to be a firm of endearment. And as the authors of the text, Raj Sisodia, David Wolf, and Jag Sheth define, a firm of endearment is a company that endears itself to stakeholders by bringing the interests of all stakeholder groups into strategic alignment. So no stakeholder group benefits at the expense of any other stakeholder group, and each prospers as the others do. So to show what an exemplary company Patagonia is, I am first going to give you a brief company history. I'll talk a little bit about Patagonia's mission statement and company philosophy. I'll highlight their charitable work and dedication to corporate responsibility, and I'll conclude with the results they have achieved through their business model. So Patagonia was officially founded by Yvon Chouinard in 1973. However, the company's history does begin a bit sooner than that. So Chouinard, who grew up in California, got his start as a climber in 1953 when he was 14 years old. He was a member of the Southern California Falconry Club, which trained hawks and falcons for hunting. And so to reach the falcon aeries, the club's instructor taught each of the group members how to rappel down cliff sides. And Chouinard was immediately hooked to the sport of rock climbing. So taking every opportunity he could, he built on his rock climbing skills and was soon moving to bigger rock faces like those at Yosemite. So to climb large rock faces, climbers use devices known as pitons, which are metal spikes that climbers drive into the rock face using a hammer, and then they use those as anchors to hook their ropes to, which will protect them against falling and will also assist their progress upwards. And so at the time that Chouinard was climbing, the only pitons available were made of soft iron. So they were like a once and done thing. You hammered them into the wall and continued your way upward and left the pitons in the rock face. So in Yosemite, some of the multi-day ascents required hundreds of piton placements. And Chouinard decided that that wasn't good enough, and it wasn't good for the environment, so he decided to make his own reusable hardware. So starting in 1957, he went to a junkyard, got a coal-fired forge, an anvil, some tongs and hammers, and started to teach himself how to blacksmith so he could make his own gear. And the word quickly spread amongst his friends and other climbing buddies about his new steel pitons that he was making. So before he knew it, he was in business and working out of his parents' backyard. So then for the next few years after that, Chouinard forged these pitons during the winter months and spent his time climbing from April through November. So he's kind of doing what he loved year-round. There was soon enough demand that there was soon enough demand for Chouinard's gear that he couldn't keep making it by hand. So by 1965, he went into partnership with a gentleman by the name of Tom Frost, who was an aeronautical engineer, and he was also passionate about climbing. So they worked together for the next 9 years, creating a company known as Chouinard Equipment. And so they constantly redesigned and improved almost every climbing tool that they used to make them stronger, lighter, simpler, and more functional, to really improve the sport. So by 1970, Chouinard Equipment had become the largest supplier of climbing hardware in the United States, which is pretty phenomenal, given that it started out of Chouinard's parents' backyard. But also, much to the dismay of Chouinard, the company had sort of become an environmental villain of sorts because the gear was damaging to the rock faces. Since climbing had become a little bit easier with the improved gear, it became more popular, and more people were using popular routes such as the El Dorado Canyon or Yosemite Valley. And so as they are doing their ascents, they're using the new steel pitons, driving them in with a hammer and then pulling them back out. So it was really degrading to the rock faces. So Chouinard and his partner Frost decided to phase out of the piton business, which was a huge business risk because at the time that was really the mainstay of their business. But they decided it had to be done to reduce climbing's impact on nature. So really from the get-go of the company, environmental safety and really preserving nature were at the forefront of their business model. So with the phasing out of the pitons, they came up with an alternative, which were aluminum chocks. So chocks are a device that can be wedged into a seam or crack in the rock face rather than having to be hammered in, so they can then be safely pulled out. So they first introduced them in their equipment catalog in 1972, and they opened the catalog with an editorial about the environmental hazards of pitons. So they were educating all of the climbing community about why they needed to make a change in the equipment they were using. And actually within a few months of the catalog's mailing, the entire piton business had plummeted, and the Chouinard equipment was selling chocks, the aluminum chocks, faster than they could be made. So it was a huge success in switching over to that new innovative equipment. Beyond that, Chouinard also helped to inform the fashion of rock climbers as well. In the 1960s, most people were wearing very utilitarian, basic gray sweatshirts and sweatpants as they climbed. But after Chouinard began wearing a brightly colored rugby shirt, which he got on a climbing trip to Scotland, everybody wanted one. So Chouinard saw this as an opportunity to really support the equipment side of his business by marketing different outdoor clothing. So by 1972, the company was selling gear such as those rugby shirts, hats, gloves, rain jackets, all of which to support the climbing equipment side of the business. And it was at this point that the name Patagonia came into play, because Chouinard didn't want the name Chouinard Equipment to be diluted at all by the clothing side of the business. He wanted it to strictly be the climbing equipment. And he also wanted the clothing to be more accessible to non-climbers. So he wanted it just to be across the board an outdoor clothing brand. And the reason they chose the name Patagonia is they thought it brought to mind something far off and interesting, romantic, not quite on the map. So they thought it was really an adventurous name, which is why they decided to go with it. And so from that point on, Patagonia worked to meet the needs not only of climbers, but other outdoor enthusiasts as well. They were very innovative in the materials they were using for the clothing, constantly meeting new needs. So when they saw an issue such as, climbers getting perspiring too much and then freezing because their clothing was retaining the water, they created a quick drying insulating long underwear so that that problem was addressed. At the beginning, they did have a couple of issues with their new synthetic fabrics that they developed. For example, they retained odors and deteriorated after a couple of washings. So they constantly worked to improve these materials and, again, to have the best equipment in the field. By the 1980s, Patagonia was really making a name for itself, not only for the utility of their products, but also as the fashion statement they were presenting, because they used bold and dramatic colors, which really hadn't been done before in that particular industry. So Patagonia has since become a household name and really remains at the forefront of the outdoor equipment and clothing industry. But what really sets the company apart from its competitors is their mission and philosophy. So Patagonia's company mission statement is to build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. So their mission, which they very clearly live out, confirms that the company is dedicated to several purposes beyond making a profit. Both internally and externally, Patagonia treats its stakeholders with the utmost respect and care. So on the internal side of things, the organizational culture promotes a healthy work-life balance, which, as we've seen throughout this course, is incredibly important for the well-being of stakeholders. So Patagonia offers employees a number of benefits, as well as a very positive work environment. So they have a relaxed work atmosphere where employees can dress how they want. The employees have opportunities to run, surf, or play volleyball during lunch, which again helps to kind of shake things up and also dilute the stress of a typical workplace. The company also sponsors ski and climbing trips, which is great since many of their employees are outdoor enthusiasts as well and really believe in the company philosophy. Since 1984, the company has offered a cafeteria that serves healthy and mostly vegetarian food, again believing that if employees live healthy lifestyles, they're going to be more productive and efficient and love coming to work. The company also offers an on-site child care center, which they've been doing since the mid-1980s as well. And at the time that they began that practice, there were only about 150 other companies that did so in the United States, and now there are over 3,000 employers that provide on-site child care. So Patagonia was really ahead of the curve. And this also helps to make the company atmosphere more familial than corporate, which also helps, to reduce the stress between employees and their families. Patagonia also offers flexible working hours and job sharing benefits, which really helps working parents. Patagonia has an environmental internship program that gives employees up to 2 months a year with full pay and benefits to volunteer with an environmental organization of their choice. So they're really encouraging their employees to take an interest not only in the industry, but in other social and community issues, and giving them the opportunity to really pursue their passion of helping the environment, which I think is really phenomenal and not found at too many other organizations. And Patagonia also offers employees other benefits, which they call green benefits, which are classes covering topics like surfing, yoga, time management, introduction to French culture, business communication, and also nonviolent civil disobedience. So they are encouraging their employees to have other interests outside of the work that they do for the company. Get the creative juices flowing. So again, they're constantly bringing new ideas to the table. And they also reward employees who purchase hybrid vehicles by reimbursing them $2,000. So again, contributing to their overall environmental message. I thought it was pretty interesting as I was doing my research. The Patagonia openly states that they never had to make a break from the traditional corporate culture that makes businesses so hidebound and inhibits creativity. And this is because they simply made the effort to hold true to their own values and traditions. So by never really fitting the mold of a corporate workplace, they really had the flexibility and freedom to create the work environment that they wanted to. Excuse me. Moving forward, the company tries to hire outdoor enthusiasts, which means then that their employees have a common interest, which helps to tighten the bonds with customers that are purchasing their products. And this also contributes to generating trust and loyalty across the board because there's that shared passion and shared connection. Given the positivity of the work environment, it's no surprise that so many people want to work for Patagonia. They receive over 10,000 applications annually for approximately 100 new openings, so it's very competitive to get one of those new positions. Externally, Patagonia is dedicated to numerous environmental issues. As the company states, a love of wild and beautiful places demands participation in the fight to save them and to help reverse the steep decline in the overall environmental health of our planet. Patagonia donates their time, services, and at least 1% of all 1% of their sales to hundreds of grassroots or environmental groups all over the world. So they really do put their money and other resources where their mouth is on these issues. Patagonia has been dedicated to making a difference in the world since the very start of their company, beginning with Chouinard and wanting to kind of change the face of climbing. So they've been very innovative and challenging the status quo from the very beginning. They started those innovations through their own products, but they've quickly committed themselves to causes beyond their own company. They acknowledge that their business practices create pollution as a byproduct of their manufacturing, so they work to reduce those harms. They are clearly considering all of their stakeholders when they make their business decisions. So they try to reduce their environmental impact by using recycled polyester in their products, as well as only using organic cotton, which they've been doing since 1996. So they're trying to reduce the amount of material that's simply getting thrown away and going to landfills. They're also trying to reduce the amount of pesticides that are being used in the production of their fabric. So that's why they only use organic cotton. In 1986, Patagonia committed to donate 10% of profits each year to numerous environmental groups. And they later adjusted that commitment to 1% of sales or 10% of profits, whichever was greater. And they've kept that commitment every year since. So they really have committed to the different causes that they're passionate about. Patagonia also uses recycled content paper for their catalogs, and they've been doing that since the mid-'80s as well. So they are constantly adding to the ways that they are being environmentally friendly or friendlier. The company is also involved in a variety of campaigns. I would take all day to talk about each of them, so I'm just going to highlight a few that are highlighted on their website. One of which is called the Worn Wear program. So the company takes responsibility to make high quality products that last for years and can be repaired. So that way consumers don't have to buy more of the product. It keeps customer gear in action longer, and it provides an easy way to recycle the garment once it's beyond repair. So they don't want to make a product that becomes obsolete very quickly. They want it to be used for years to come, and so that way they try to really provide a high quality product that can be reduced, reused, recycled. Another campaign they're involved in is called Vote Our Planet, which stresses the need to elect leaders at the local, state, and national levels who will defend not only the well-being of families, but also the community, also the well-being of communities. Leaders who support clean water, clean air, strong climate action, and a shift to renewable energy. As mentioned earlier, Patagonia does an environmental internship program with their employees, which gives them the opportunity to volunteer with an environmental organization for up to 2 months, and also maintain their full pay and benefits throughout that period. So that really broadens the amount of groups and variety of groups that the company's involved with, because it's up to the employee to make that decision. Another campaign they are involved in is called the Supply Chain Footprint Chronicles. So through this, they promote fair labor practices and safe working conditions throughout the company's supply chain. They are incredibly transparent in their operations and how their products are made, and have an entire section on their website which is dedicated to their sourcing and manufacturing practices. Patagonia places high demands on its suppliers to meet specified quality, environmental compliance, and social responsibility standards. In the Firms of Endearment text, the authors agree that no other company they studied demands more of their suppliers in terms of social and environmental responsibility than Patagonia does. So they really are pushing the limits in this regard. So how does this translate to the results of the company? From a company that started in the backyard of a California home in the 1950s, it has now grown to a company valued at over $800 million, which is, it's come a long way. The company's profit has also tripled since 2008, so it's continuing to do very well for itself. As we've studied in the other firms of endearment that we've highlighted, it never ceases to amaze me that these companies do so well while still putting so much of their resources towards the benefits of their stakeholders. And when the textbook describes this phenomena, they actually use Patagonia quite often as an example. The authors wrote, "Company A will outperform Company B in the long term if the stakeholders regard it with greater affection." The outdoor apparel and equipment maker Patagonia discovered this. A much-loved company, Patagonia's customers pay an average premium of 20% or more over competitors' prices. This helps to produce a gross profit margin of close to 50%. So over the years, because they've stayed true to their values, Patagonia's customer base has become extremely loyal and is willing to pay more for the higher quality product that's going to last longer and ultimately support a company whose mission really goes beyond themselves. So having high quality and practice standards benefit Patagonia, of course, but also benefit their suppliers as well. The suppliers do take on significant risks in becoming associated with Patagonia because they have to retool their factories, put their employees through intensive training programs, explore some new production methods that they might not have used before, as well as incur some additional capital expenses. But the companies that partner with Patagonia also tend to experience higher productivity and improved profits. So I could probably go on all day discussing the work that Patagonia does, but I hope that you've gotten a bit of an idea through my presentation that Patagonia truly is a firm of endearment, delivering high quality outdoors equipment, working to save the environment and bettering the lives of others. For your reference, I am going to upload links to Patagonia's website as well as a couple of interesting articles that I read in case you want to learn a little bit more about the company. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch my presentation. I very much enjoyed going through this class with all of you and wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors.